Hey everyone, Dave here, talking to you today in a classic Let's Do Some Math episode. And today we're going to talk about the math behind making traditional 401k contributions for your career. Actually, this one over here should say Roth 401k. Let's change that really fast. Okay, contributions here. So let's look at the assumptions that are going into this analysis. And you'll see I have one highlighted in red for a very good reason. So your salary, your average college grad, maybe $60,000. We don't have to assume anything big here to accumulate a lot of wealth. You get an annual raise of 3%. You're not making a huge 401k contribution, only 6%. Your employer is giving you a 3% match. We're not making a killing in the market. We're averaging 8%. We're retiring at age 65. Your required minimum distributions kick in at age 75. And here is a key assumption, and this is true for many people. We're going to assume a working year's tax rate of 22%, which for somebody at this income is a pretty good assumption given current U.S. tax policy. But then in retirement, after you've accumulated a lot of assets, and in this case in particular, on the left-hand column here, if you're taking RMDs from a traditional 401k or at that time a traditional IRA, if you've rolled it over, your tax rate is likely higher. So we're just assuming a blended average in retirement of 32% or 10% higher here. The math changes significantly, obviously, if this difference doesn't happen or is smaller. So let's look at, and the other thing that I'll say here is, this is really hard modeling in terms of what we're doing here. And we're also not going to be factoring in some of the more complicated things going on in retirement, like the effect of RMDs on the taxation of Social Security benefits or Medicare benefits. I'll talk about those things in general and how that swings things, but we're doing some simplifying here to get through this in a reasonable amount of time. So let's look at the left-hand side here, which is doing nothing but traditional 401k contributions for your career. You're age 22 this year, you just got out of college, and you start off with nothing in your 401k and make a 9% contribution. That's your 6% plus your employer's 3% to get to that $5,400. You make some money on that. There's your balance at the end of your first year of working. We move to age 23. We carry that down. Again, you make a little bit higher 401k contribution, got a little raise. Now the money is being made not only on your contribution, but also on what's in there already. And there's your ending balance for year two. And so if we go down the column here, we see that by age 32, you've already accumulated over $100,000. By age 45, you've accumulated $500,000. By age 53, you were a millionaire in your 401k plan. And by retirement age 65, you've accumulated a hefty $3 million. And again, that all starts with this pretty modest contribution in the form of 6% of your salary. So we're hoping you contribute more than that consistently, because there can be an interruption in employment and other things. But 6% really does a nice job of helping you accumulate wealth. So we get all the way down here then to age 65. We stop contributing because we've retired, but the account is still growing at a healthy clip. And by the time you need to take required minimum distributions, you're sitting at $6 million as an account value at age 74. Not bad. All right, let's go over to the Roth side. So we'll slide over here. And let's see if both can be visible. Yes, good. So we're here again back at age 22 in the year 2025. We start with nothing. Our 401k contribution is smaller here. We're getting the full benefit. I'm showing the formula up here. Not sure if you can see the small text of the employer match, but you see this minus sign here, and that's because you're paying taxes at that 22% rate. And so instead of $5,400 flowing into your 401k, only $4,608 is flowing in. That affects not only the contribution itself, but then you can see in that first year, you made $369 over here. You made 432 in the original scenario. And so when we get to the end of the year, we're already the better part of $850 in the hole versus making a traditional contribution. And when we see over the years, this difference keeps increasing. And by retirement age, which is down here at age 65, we're about $440,000 behind. And by the time we get to those drawdown years for the traditional side, this thing is ballooned up to a difference of $885,000. You might be saying to yourself, Dave, bad idea. This is just never going to work. I'm not sure why we're even talking about this. Well, let's see what happens down here in the retirement years. So back over on the traditional side, we're now needing to start taking out required minimum distributions. And there's the withdrawal that we have to take out. We get hit with these taxes. So our net draw is this. And for this entire thing, I'm assuming that you are a big spender in retirement. You just spend this whole net draw. You're probably getting Social Security, other sources of income, but we're just going to spend this down. We're not going to track any assets outside of the plan. And so as this RMD goes along, you are living pretty high on the hog as a senior citizen. So there's our ending balance. It is still increasing for quite some time. The RMDs really don't get significant enough to start taking this thing down until your 90s. And we end up at age 94 with about $8 million, 84, still $8 million, 8 and change. So somewhere in that neighborhood is the final value of this thing before some of us might expect to leave the planet, unfortunately. So let's look over at the Roth side and see what's happening. We were $885,000 in the hole. And you can see as soon as we need to start taking taxes out, this gap starts shrinking. It's only a little here. It's mostly gone down in here. And finally, but somewhere between age 86 and 87, the Roth strategy, pure Roth strategy, actually takes over and becomes the preferred strategy. And again, you may say to yourself, Dave, only 70% of people make it to age 80. I don't know if I want to bank on making it to age 87 for this thing to pay off. And I'll say a few things there. First of all, as I said at the start of the analysis, this doesn't factor in taxation of Social Security benefits, taxation of Medicare benefits, other tax policy that may come into play here. It's a big, very unknown variable of what's going to be true out in this year. Maybe tax rates will have increased. And if any of those things are still true, this probably starts to look like a break-even proposition around age 80. The second piece is, with the traditional strategy, all of your flexibility is gone. This withdrawal is mandatory, whether you need it or not, whether you want it or not, and you're going to have to pay these taxes. If you've done really well, and this is now about passing assets along to heirs, you see here there's no required withdrawal category. I have it labeled withdrawal. It's just spending money in this scenario. But again, if you're not spending these amounts, you don't have to take it out. And then the final piece, which again is related to heirs, is that, let's say that, unfortunately, things don't go well for you. Let's say you check out at age 78 and, never had a chance to catch this thing up. What's the difference at this stage? It's still $800,000. Your heirs are going to be a lot happier in the right-hand column than they are in the left-hand column, because on the left-hand side with the traditional, they're going to be paying taxes on all of these withdrawals, and they have to take it out over a 10-year period. And we've left a big, juicy tax bomb for them to deal with. Again, far from the end of the world. They're inheriting, what's it look like? $7 million. So I don't feel too bad. But over here on the right, they're even happier, because even though the number that they're inheriting is smaller, as they have to take it out over that span, there's no taxes due whatsoever. So, bottom line in this scenario, isn't an absolute slam dunk to think about a Roth? No, but is it compelling? Yes. And that's why people kind of land on the fence on this thing. If you know, for example, that you're going to be in the 12% tax bracket for any year and you can still contribute to your 401k at that low income, do it because it's highly likely your retirement tax rate is going to be higher. If in general you think there's going to be a spread here, it probably makes sense to do some Roth 401k contributions. If for whatever reason you don't think there's going to be a difference, or maybe even you think your rate might be lower in retirement for some reason, probably leaning more toward the traditional side might make sense. Or, if you get a bunch of promotions in here and your current tax or US tax policy changes and gets jacked up for whatever reason, and you're paying a high rate at that point in your career, you may want to shut the Roth contributions down and just move to traditional. And finally, what the bottom line of all of this is it's so complicated. We don't really know for sure which is going to be the best, not only because US tax policy can change, but also your circumstances and goals can change. And so it just makes sense in a lot of cases to put some money in the traditional bucket, some money in the Roth bucket. That gives you flexibility in retirement, and you benefit at least in some manner from however this whole thing plays out. So that is it in terms of the math. Like and follow if you'd like to see more from me. Take care.